Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Wherever you are on this planet, welcome aboard. I am your Sensei Al Bob. I am your griot here to tell you a story. Here I am in camo. We're in the bunker. We're about to be shelled at any moment. Um, and I had to apologize for the. It's a good show. Cheryl, my girl Cheryl. Well, I have to drive about 40 miles to come see you guys. It cost me all about $8 one way, $8 the next, $16 just to make the YouTube. So I got to be able to do a lot of little shopping, go see the doctor, go see my wizard, my digital wizard. So, and that's what's going on. The world around us seems like it's, oh my God, but it's been the same old same. I mean, did anyone get this upset when we went into Afghanistan and into Iraq and fermented the Arab Spring and caused the truth can change it. Everyone that I talk to just has an opinion. They really have no understanding of what's going on. My only question is whether Vlad is reading the script or if he's just been hoodwinked. Because there are plenty of elements that would just love to, have a nuclear exchange. That would bring us the Georgia Stones. And we already have a billion people off this planet, right? Go look up what solar water is. Donald Trump, made the space command. It's like the Marines or the Navy or the Navy already was out there. When everyone saw, boy, that flying saucer looks like a cigar. Actually, it was a submarine, and they just put magnetic propulsion on it. Stuck the units on the side of their submarines. And what better thing to go into space than a vehicle that is double-hulled and basically holds a atmosphere inside it that people can go 100 to 900 feet under the water. That's a lot of pressure, a lot more pressure than the vacuum of space. And with a magnetic propulsion unit around it, you have a field, right? So you have your own gravity and your own protective field, right? Someone says, "Oh, I love you, Sensei Al Bob, about that music in the background. I can't stand." Well, I'm sorry, it's elevator music, and I'm in an elevator, an undisclosed bunker under the ground in an elevator, drinking dragon juice. Mm-hmm. So I left the school the 1st or 2nd of March, and it was a beautiful week. The whole week was beautiful. In the 60s, sunny every day, enabled me to, put things back into semi-order. I'm waiting for the, I live in a forest that's the Cherokee National Forest in Tennessee. That is basically a rainforest, right? So in the spring it rains, but less than it was, the rock on. There's one little guy there. Hey there, little guy. Who Who are you? Why don't you send me a little chatty poo? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are on this planet. This is your Sensei Al Bob. Welcome you to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. That's me. And I'm here to tell you stories. This show is just for entertainment's sake. Don't believe a word I say. All you people who are so snowflaked, so I only believe what Fox, what CNN, what MSN. No, sorry. If you want to think, you might like this channel, because I don't tell you anything. I don't tell you what to think. I just tell you stories, and that's a griot's technique for you, the adept, to think for yourself. Good luck with that, right? But it's pretty obvious what's going on in the world is nothing that you're being told. From my point of view, from my observational, roost, I see that we're being readied, we are being prepared, we are being softened up for, the TV show V, The Visitors, or the other one, Gene Roddenberry's Final Earth, Final Conquest, Final something. And that's, we are owned, guys. We are mud puppets. We are someone's genetic monkey, And Loki, that tricky monkey he was, threw in a little bit of angel dust so we'd have something of a free will. And a kind of motif of trying to understand love's co-creation. That's the only thing that exists. Love is the only true thing. Everything else is irrelevant. Money, property, stuff, it's irrelevant, right? So, it's all shit, actually, I've had so much shit over my life. I've had to let so much stuff go. I've had businesses and properties and careers and, just let it go. Because that little is going through my brain, and I know it's going through yours and it's driving you insane, but this is a good exercise, Can you breathe? And if you don't like this, right? Why don't you send me some money on my PayPal so I can get a little better active internet? In every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. Remember, if you want to get a hold of me, that's the dudeawake42@gmail, right? How many of you guys have seen aliens or dimensional creatures or Bigfoot? Bigfoot's a dimensional creature. A friend of mine, he's it's hard to explain about the Colonel, but he's like the Forrest Gump of national security. And he always seems to stumble into the most strangest of things. And what's really interesting, he and I always, until we became solid friends, we would always just cross in the dark. I mean, he would be in the same place that I was, like that little adventure I went with one of my mentors who took me to a coal mine in Pennsylvania where they had found a gigantic stainless steel box the size of a bread truck that was totally encased in a coal seam. The coal machine was chewing up the 500 horsepower synchronous electric motor was chewing up the coal seam, and it smacked into this box. And it had so much horsepower, and so the teeth were like carbon diamond steel teeth, and that box just chewed the machine up. The torque of the machine flipped it over, crushed itself, rah, 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 ate itself. But then they said, what's this? And that's when we were called. Right? It was like a mixture of Indiana Jones meets Close Encounters. And when we got there, the military had it all cordoned off. All the coal people were gone except for a few who were needed to run the elevators and the exhaust system, and head engineer who knew every little inch of the mine, and one of the mining geologists who knew every corner of that. And but they were just over there. They were like on top, because to go into the thing, they had a environmental control, and then you went into the elevators, and the elevator guys were in a spacesuit. Well, not really, just a bunny suit with a respirator. And we had spacesuits, and so we went down. Then we went through 2 more airlocks till we got to the place. And when we got to the place where the box was, there was nobody there except a few people. And half the people that were there everyone was in spacesuits, and except the military guys. They had contingent of security, and all it was expendable mud puppets with respirators, right? And but we all had spacesuits, and my friend, the colonel, he was there, but I didn't know him. But when I told him that story, he said, "Man, I was there. I was one of those guys in the spacesuits at the second airlock. I saw you guys go in. I saw you have the mud puppets tip the box on the side, and then it fell over and then fell apart, and the glamour. It was inside. It was this energetic thing that just oozed like this, and different. It looked like it was made out of a zillion points of light, and." It was one of those things that was buried as a time capsule, and I'm sure it was sending out signals to somebody, because there were guys in the third airlock. When you came down the elevator, they had like in coal mines. It's not just like the hole and a seam. They have these things called mezzanines where they cut up, which at one time was a gigantic seam of coal. And so those were, where they have their shops and their equipment and their distribution of power and stuff like that, and ventilation. And so when we came down the elevator, there was one of these mezzanines, and then things going off in different directions. And we went, and they were all kind of cordoned off. And we went down this one, and there was an airlock there. We went couple 100 yards to where there was a big mezzanine, and that's where all the guys were in bunny suits, and some guys in spacesuits, and there were a whole bunch of people that had, on their bunny suit, Lockheed, Grumman, Northrop, IBM, and they had all their little workstations. And that's how these things are run, because they're run by corporations. So, because if it was all military and you could identify the code number, you could use a Freedom of Information Act to get at that information. But corporations own that information. It's proprietorial. So that's who's running these wars. That's who's running the world. Corporations. When people go, I hate their government. No, government is like the postman. You shouldn't hate the postman. There's nothing wrong with the postman. What else can I say? I'm talking to nobody. Oh, I haven't had one of these for a few days because it cost me, 18 bucks just to do this. And like I said, I gotta have, you know, more than one thing to do than come here. And you don't like the background music. So if you don't like the background music and you want to see more of me, get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and then go to PayPal and put some money in my PayPal account. And I have to thank those 4 of you who are constantly sending me, and I really, really appreciate it. And it always gets me through the month. And those folks have no money. They send me $10, $20, that's it. And I appreciate it a great deal. The 4 of you who do that, I really, really, I feel it in my heart. Every time you do it, I feel it in my heart. Now, once in a while, there's a few of you who pop down $50, $100, even more. So why don't you do more of that? A few of you guys who have some real cash who watch this, throw something my way. At least, once. And then I might be able to start doing a show from the man cave. And there wouldn't be any background music. And I could go on for hours instead of, 16, 17 minutes. So, yeah. So, and no one's saying anything. So it's 17 minutes now. So a couple more songs and I'm going to leave, right? Because the audience isn't here. And it's the only place I can do it right now. And like I said, it's very limited because I can't come here every day and do it. Because it's like at least $20 a day, which I don't have. So. So, let's see. Abductions. I've been abducted. It was I had a buddy in Irwin, Tennessee, right along the Nolichucky River, right? And he had like a kind of camp thing for all those camp canoer guys, and so he was a rainbow guy, and it was kind of a rainbow kind of place out in the middle of the woods. You really only could get there by, you could drive there, but most people got there by canoe. And he had a website, and people would come, and it was like, an ongoing party, an ongoing rainbow gathering. He died in a shootout, but that was a long time ago. This was a long time ago. This was a good 20 years ago. And and he had all these holler folk who lived with him. He was like a single man social service unit. Anybody who was homeless or had no place to go, they could go to his place. And it was like a hobbit village because people built. The river would wash through and dig these kind of caves into the ground under the trees and rocks were above, and it would gouge out. They've been doing it for years. And a number back in the day, folk, before the turn of the century, of the 19th century, people actually built houses in those things, like with bricks, and it was interesting. They had it in such a way so that the water was always going to come through, and so they had these houses so the water could go through them. But that was only, once or twice a year. Maybe if it's really rainy, lots more than that, but at least once or twice. But sometimes not all the way through the house, maybe just up to the edge, So anyway, it was quite an interesting thing. And so he, was building. It was a hill, and so he had a contracting business. He did everything, and he had excavating equipment, bulldozers and backhoes. And so he dug up higher, same kind of thing, into that same kind of strata. And we're building like really nice brick and stone uh, houses with nice porches out looking on the Nolichucky. And you know, he was this is way before you know, what is that thing where you rent somebody's house? You know. Anyway, he, like I said, he had his own website, and so he was, you know, expanding, and so he wanted to, you know, on one corner of his property, he had a house, and it had electricity, and he wanted to bring it out into all of these places. So I laid it out, and we put it in the ground, and we used PVC pipe, glued it up. It was watertight. We pulled wire through that and distributed it through all these places. And so I was working on one of these houses, and he didn't build the access to it too well, you know. And that was like the last thing. He was building everything else, and he had the deck, but to get up the deck, he had piles of. He was going to build a cinder block foundation in the front and put steps in it. So he had piles. He was collecting cinder blocks, and so he had, you know, piles of cinder blocks, and you could step up the pile into the house. So I was working on the thing. And I went, you know, to have lunch because there's always a ton of people. It was just a party going on. It's the rainbow, have a good time, and it was, you know, that's why I hung out there. It was loads of fun, and was helping all these people. And I had my own electrical crew, and they were doing, you know, showing how to do this, that, and the other thing. And I did all the connective tissue of it, and you know, so anyway, so there were people who kind of came through, there were people who kind of visited, but there was at least 20 people who lived there, right? Who had no other place to live. And they were nice, they were interesting, and he was always going, he didn't want the rainbows. He wanted people who would work hard, help him out, would be fun, who wouldn't be adverse to getting a job. He'd get them jobs. And so and so there's always breakfast, a big breakfast, always a lunch around 1 o'clock, always dinner around dark 30, 8 o'clock, right? So anyway, I, you know, started off breakfast, and there was some crew. I had some people, you know, gluing pipe together and putting them into big boxes. We hadn't started putting wire yet. We were just digging holes and putting pipe and running that. Because as soon as you do that and bury it, you can pull the wire any old time. Oh, there's Jamie. How you doing? Yep, I'm looking well. You know, as my endocrinologist always says, I'm the healthiest dead guy he knows. You know, I went and saw all of my number one doctors in Roanoke, and they all said the same thing. You know, you're sick as a dog, but you know, you are keeping the hound away. You know, you have homeostasis. You have this balance going on that allows you to get around. You know, so that's me. I could moan on and on and on about how sick I am, but I'm not. You know, I have homeostasis. And I have my good days, my bad days. Every morning is a little. So I could get all my homeostasis in line. But anyway, about 20 years ago, when I was, you know, only 50, my mid 50s, and I was pretty good looking. You know, I hadn't really started to pack on the pounds. I hadn't started working for the desperate lawyers, and I guess it was more than that. It was maybe almost 30 years ago when I was 50. Or late 40s, early 50s. Anyway, so I was working on this house. So I, you know, had the big breakfast, got these people working on this, that, and the other thing. You know, had a few puffs, and then went out and worked. You know, and I was wiring this house, And I had this kid, 25-year-old brother and sister kids, and so they were drilling the holes. We didn't have electricity in that building, so they were having to do this, with it. He didn't quite have battery-powered tools yet, and so they were doing that. And yeah, I showed him how to sharpen the auger, and it looks pretty good. And so they were doing that, and I was setting a panel in there, and we had some cable that we were running through the house. So they were drilling the holes, and we were running the home runs, and I was setting boxes, and we had pulled from the house, you know, two sets of double aught cable for distribution and that panel. Right? And so that was the first step to get power kind of out into the hinterlands. And then we were going to take that other double aught into the woods and split it up into a bunch of places. And this was going to be one of those nice houses that the Ritchie people were going to be able to rent, and he was going to about 6 of them. So this was the first one, and then we were going to distribute stuff off of that panel. So we were working away at that. We went back for lunch, and it was about, I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock. It was past noon, right? And lunch went for as long as food lasted. Anyway, we walked back, and we were really more going to fill up our water jugs and have a few puffs, but we ate a little. And this guy was having an argument with his wife because he was going to go to work, and he wanted to get picked up, right? And so there was, hubbub about, that, right? And so I didn't care. I just, we had our meal. The kids were their kids, and so they would try to stay away from their parents. So, we filled our plates. We got something for the pipe, those water jugs, and went out and sat on the porch, and yelling and screaming were going on in there. And then my friend came out, and he brought a nice little pouch, and we smoked a lot. Just, and then we went back to work, right? So basically, as we left, the woman, the mother, told the kids, come back before the dark 30 because you'll go get him, right? She didn't want to drive the car at night. Right? I can relate. I can't see at night now. And she was at that age and state that she didn't want to do it. So, we go back, we work. They leave about 2 hours later, right? And because they were going to do, she said, hey, come back, you have to do something for me, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So we got to a point where I didn't need them anymore, and I just sat there terminated. That's what I do best. Put things together so it works. And so we're doing that. I'm doing that. And I'm trying to get this cable up. It should have got them to pull this, but I'm trying to pull this cable up. And just a couple of feet, so I have like a winchy thing, and I'm out on the porch, and I'm like, and it slips, and I fall back. And I'm like falling back, and it's kind of getting towards dark 30. It's probably 6 or 7 o'clock. Still enough light to see and work and get around. But anyway, I'm falling through the air, and I am kind of tumbling. And I'm heading straight towards this pile of cinder blocks, right? I'm going, okay, I'm going to die because, I'm going to fall about 10 to 15 feet. I'm tumbling through the air. I have exerted a tremendous amount of force going this, and then it slips, and I'm like, right? And my head, the little math is going on, and I'm signaling. And I said, well, when I come around first, my head's going to hit a pile of cinder blocks, and then my back. So first, my head will be totally a broken melon, and then my back will be crushed. And I'll be dead. Hopefully, I'll be dead. Don't want to live after that. And then a big flash of light. I said, okay, I just died, I guess. And then I'm unconscious. And time goes by, and I'm unconscious. I know you are, Jamie. Jane, sweetheart, good to see you. So, big flash of light. I'm unconscious. I'm dead. And then I wake up, and this big light is in my face. And then air horn. It's like shook. And then I hear, fogginess screaming, right? And I can't get up, and these arms are grabbing me, lifting me up, and I am a good mile and a half from where that pile of cinder blocks was. I'm in the middle of a road, not one of my friends' dirt things, but a road, right? County kind of thing, right? And it's a truck, right? And the guy knows me. He goes, what's going on? I'm coming to, and I'm like going, well, my head's still on. And I said, is there any blood? Am I okay? And the guy goes, what happened? I said, I don't know. So he goes, I'm about to go to work. And he was an EMT. So he was going to go to the hospital. So he goes, why don't I take you to the hospital and check you out? I said, yeah, I fell onto a pile of cinder blocks from 20 feet up in the air. He goes, yeah, we better take you to the hospital. So he takes me to the hospital, and I know all the people in the hospital, and because my friend there, he used to be the head EMT guy, right? He was a military guy. That's how I got to know him. He was one of the guys at COM at the Rainbow Gatherings. Anyway, so they check me out, right? And so I know this doctor, and he's checking me out, and right back here, right, between here and here, he says, there's really strangeness in your neck. What do you mean strangeness? Well, it's all red, and there's all these puncture wounds, but no blood and no open skin, just really red. And I go, is it all in one place? He goes, well, it's all in one place, but there's 3 super red dots on your neck, and it's right near where, there's a nerve here, right? And it has a lot to do with your hearing. And anyway, he goes, let's stick your head in a CAT scan machine, see what shows up. And these nondescript triangles were in my neck, right? So he goes, I don't know what those things are, but I don't think you came with them. So why don't we try and get them out of you? And I said, okay, but there's a vein there, and there's a nerve there, and I'll be very, very careful, right? So he just makes a little incision, and he's trying to grab. I see it; it's kind of sparkly, and he tries to grab it, and it moves away. Keeps doing this in my neck, and it's like, whoa. And so I knew this guy, what's his name, Greer in Asheville. He was an emergency EMT doctor. And he was really into this flying, into ET and the whole thing. Anyway, and I had been in that like big time in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I kind of left it alone in the 90s. And I couldn't leave it alone because I kept being drawn back into it. So, and that's when I met Greer in the 90s in Nashville. Anyway, but through all of that, I knew loads of people who like deprogrammed people and did all that kind of stuff. And I was at Duke in '68 when the SEAL Corporation was there, and they were working on, basically doing Captain America, super soldier, right? And there were Nazis there, and it was, when Putin goes on, we're going to denazify. Well, that's right. It would be nice if we could denazify the planet, but it's a hard row of hoe. So anyway, so I went one of my times visiting my friends at Duke during the 90s, during that period. I went to a doctor who was a specialist in those things, right? And he basically, and I had the x-rays, and my EMT doctor, had the CAT scan, and I had 2 or 3 more x-rays of them, in a span of a few months. And they just stayed there. They didn't seem to do anything. And he tried one more time to grab it, and like I said, it kind of zinged around away from him. So I went to this guy, and he said, "Oh, those are implants." And he knew, he looked at the X-rays, looked at the CAT scans, so they're very good topographic imagery. I can tell you exactly what kind they are, what they do. And he goes, "They just tagged you. They are not. These aren't control nodes. You're just listening and keeping a tab on you, and they will dissolve. They're crystalline strata, and they will dissolve, right? A year or 2, And he said they'll leave a residue, and the residue is still there, right over here. This kind of crystalline, nice skin right here is almost looks like, I don't know what it looks like, but it's anyway." Over a period of time, they went away. But this guy in the truck, he was going to work, EMT, takes him to the hospital. I stay there for a few hours, and a policeman comes, a policeman I know. And he goes, "I'm going to take you back home because it's been a real rumpus, more than usual at the campsite. And I'm going to be the first guy to go, and I'd really like it. Do you feel okay? Can you, they're going to keep you overnight? Can you go?" And I said, "Well, you know what? Take me to the, pancake house and the Waffle House. Buy me breakfast and a couple of cups of coffee, and let's go." He says, "Good idea. I want a breakfast." So he buys me breakfast, and we drive back to that site. And what has happened is that the guys who abducted me and did whatever they did to me, and left me on the highway to get run over, they went and visited everyone there and just ran the people ragged, guys running around, those guys had guns, so they were shooting at them, but they shot 2 of the campers. I mean, it was a mess. And I had known that policeman, and I'd been with him on other interesting things. And because he had been a policeman, he'd been EMT, he'd worked in the hospital. I mean, he'd come from that neck of the woods. He had a pretty big business of excavating. So I mean, he was well known, well liked, well respected, even though he was in a good way. And so, the gunshot wounds weren't fatal, or even, they were just, shotgun, lots of pellets. No one was killed or blinded or hurt deeply, but it was a mess, right? And it got out that this happened, and that kind of ended my friend's little Airbnb business for a while, and that's when I kind of moved on. And so that was, I bought a piece of property on top of a mountain in the next county, 2 valleys away. So that was my little abduction story. Right? And when I did I was real involved in, there's a great radio show, and you can catch it on the internet. It's been going for since the 60s. It's called Alternative Radio, right? By this guy, Bastian. He started in Boulder, and I think he's now in San Francisco. But alternativeradio.org, he's got every show. He has amazing lectures, and that's his whole thing. He gets really interesting people, Noam Chomsky, what's his name? American, such and such, American history. What's that guy's name? Anyway, that's a radio show. So last night he had this guy who started this English entity called XR. And it's all about, we're about 4 years away going over the tipping point of the end of humanity, right? At least end of humanity as we are here, right? And if you go watch the movie Zardos, that's a real, could be kind of, that's one direction of humanity. If you watch a TV show called Revolution, which is kind of about just about a period about right now. This TV show was, on some NBC, CBS, and somebody maybe 10 years ago, and it's at a period in time that could be right now, and it's military stuff going on. Things are like 9/11, blah blah blah, and other stuff, and it's these two guys in they're army guys. And they're near Fort Bragg, and they're going off base to go boozing and get into trouble. And they're on the highway, and his brother is like a scientist, right? And he's working on a special project. He and his wife are working on a really special project. And he comes home with lots of stuff. Fill up the bathtub with water. Start. Like it's a hurricane, but it's a beautiful day. But no, he knows that these morons that he works with are about to test what he's been working on. And it's a device that absorbs electricity, right? So like, you're in a military zone and you hit this button and everybody's tank, airplane, gun stops working. And, that was the idea. I've heard of the triangle implants. Yep. And so, anyway, he's talking to his brother, get back to the base. Don't be out on the street. It's going to be bad. The lights go out. His first phone goes, and then the guy's driving the car, and his car stops. And it's on the interstate, right? And he gets out, and he's not too far from the base. He's looking around, and he sees airplanes because they're not too far from, jet planes are coming into Charlotte, and he sees the planes just falling out of the sky, exploding, and that's the beginning of the show. Right? Then it cuts 5 years later. Everyone's horse and buggies, and they got machine guns. They got M16s and mortars, and they got nothing big. No helicopters, no jet planes, no bombers, no electricity. Everyone's got candles, right? And those two guys get back, have enough brains to realize, wow, we got all these military guys, we got all this hardware. Let's just lock the gate, get everyone on the same page, and let's take over. And that's what they do. So one of those two guys who was driving in that car is like the Putin, right? And the other guy's buddy is second in command. And so the show goes on from there. So that's, potential, right? A lot of potential. You're not going to kill, humans are like cockroaches. You're not going to kill them all. But it can be we've had some pretty bad days. And things like 9/11 and 08 and 2020. Those were all just blips, like meat tenderizers, get us ready. Right? What I think is going to happen is this war is just going to get bloodier and bloodier, and it's going to be a replay of Syria. Syria was the test bed, Obama said, I'm drawing the line, chemical weapons. Glad use them, nothing happens. So I think that's going to be the next thing. It's and the other thing is, I can't believe that anybody's narrative, right? It's a joke because, like I said, the only real question is Vlad reading the script, or is he been, he's just psycho played, right? He's being played, right? Because what Mr. Globaloney wants is to slice the Soviet Union into Russia, the Federation of Russia, up into candy bits, So let's see, Dr. Stephen Greer, yeah, Steve. I mean, Steve's on a mission. I liked him better when he was just a ER doctor. I mean, I don't really know him. Meaning, I met him. I was in Asheville. I was in that scene, but I had been in that scene for 40 years now. He has a history, as a kid, and he lives in an area. He grew up in that neck of the woods, up in the mountains, so he's seen a lot of stuff as a kid. He's told me stories like that. So he has a history, and he's on a mission. But he's another guy who's being played. He's constantly, he thinks because these people talk to him, and the security services talk to him like he's one of them. Sorry, anybody in that scene, David, what's his name, and his buddy, they are, they again, all those guys have interesting information, right? And if you're a good susser, if you can figure out what they're saying and what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's not true, that's interesting. But to believe any of that stuff, because definitely whatever the story is, it's none of the narratives, right? And so it's the story about this. We have in the Ukraine, the president is a stand-up comedian, right? So he's a trained actor. He's like their version of Ronald Reagan, and his script is he's the hero, right? And he's ready for that. So, what can I say? A lot of people are going to die, but people have been dying. We, the United States, we went into Afghan and Iraq with no real reason why we did that, except we wanted to do it. That the neocons had this thing, the new century of America whoopee, and they had a list of the hit list, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya, and Russia and North Korea, right? So it's like, please, So you have to think for yourself, right? You have to start digging deep. Go look at all this information, yes, and you've got to use your gut, what your gut is, because in 1972, when I was at the UN, right, I was running the NGO Institute for Aesthetically Adapted Appropriate Technology. And people just call it the alternative. You're the alternative technology boys. Well, we had girls there too. And I said, no, we're the kids. So anyway, the kids have to step up. I've been a kid my whole life. From 9 years old until 35, all of my mentors called me the kid. The younger versions of them called me the dude. And now people call me Al Bob. So, and in between, I was the doctor. When I was at the national laboratories, they called me the doctor because I was hanging out with all these doctors. I taught at the university, Newark College of Engineering, and my ID said double doctor. And then my next idea, the next year, I had him put PhD squared. So you gotta have fun. You gotta have fun, and that's why people either love me or are really annoyed with me. I can really upset people. My neighbor, he's destroying the road, so I can't. I'm 72 years, so I don't have equipment. I can't, I have to do it like stone by stone, to rebuild things. And it's like a work in progress. So I put a drain in and put little stones over it so he wouldn't crush it. And I put little reflectors with, caution tape on it. And I don't know what it is about the caution tape. He just can't stand it. Right? And so he rips them down. Well, one reason I put them up there so I can see it and I don't run over shit. But he just, I go up and down that road at 5 miles an hour. He does 70. It's like not 70, maybe 40. And he's a guy, when he's spinning his wheels, and there's no really telling him about it. So I just put up the little caution tapes, and there's all these raspberry bushes around, right? So I tie the caution tape on the raspberry bushes, and he rips them off, and he just grabs it. And so every time I see him, his hand's always ripped up from grabbing it again. What can I say? I just can't help myself. I mean, if he just left them there, So I've stopped doing it because the first time it's kind of funny. Second time it's kind of third time it's starting to get into Freudenscheid, and that's when I go, okay. And he's been there a year now, and basically everything he's destroyed, he's had to, I've fixed things so I can get through, and the road won't wash out. But for him to take his big heavy stuff, he actually had to really fix the road like I wanted to do 20 years ago. So he keeps doing stuff like that, and then he came and cleared out a part of my property. I mean, cut pieces so he could store his equipment there. I'm like, without asking me. And I said, what is this? And he goes, oh, it's so much easier for me. I'll mow your lawn. I said, I don't have any lawn. Said, I'll clean your place up. And then I just, what am I going to do? But I realized that he really couldn't use it because he had these big, long trailers in the road. No matter how much he cuts down, it can only turn so much. And so he broke one of his axles trying to make the turn, and then he realized he couldn't do it. But he cleared it out for me. And I was thinking, one day I'm going to have to clear this out. So he did it. And then I built a sweat box so he couldn't pull back in there. What is that thing? That's my church. Hey, you should come in. It's a sweat box. You got it. It's so hot in here. I said, yeah, you're supposed to sweat. Oh, I sweat. I smell really terrible. I said, well, you need to sweat more then. So, yep, pretty much. So, like I said, all of this stuff is in the script, right? So what I'm thinking is going to happen is, so this war is just going to get bloodier and bloodier. Vlad is going to use, or somebody, because there's supposed to be labs there that if the bugs get out, it'll be terrible. It'll be like, so either they'll blow up a lab and the biologics will get out and people start turning into frogs or something. And then, so what will happen is Poland will give the Ukrainians the Su-29s, and then Vlad will use a tactical nuclear weapon on Poland. And they will, it'll be close, so many Ukrainians will be going to Poland that Poland's been pretty amazing because they haven't just stuck them in barbed wire cages like they did in Syria. All the Polish people are letting them stay in their houses. Right? That's pretty righteous. 3 million, right? We're like whining over bringing in 1,100 of them into America. Anyway, so Vlad will use a couple of tactical nukes in Poland, and one of them will, instead of hitting that airport, it'll jab over there, maybe 15 miles out of off kilter, and hit some town that has, like, let's say, I don't know, 100,000 Ukrainians in it, and kill them in one shot. So it'll be pretty nasty, and that's when it'll be almost time to hit the button, and basically aliens will land. And I am saying this will happen before 4th of July. I mean, they made that movie Independence Day for a reason. Right? So, what time is it? Near my doctor time? No, still got a little time. So, there's only one of you left. So it's, it's what it is, and go listen to the Extinction Revolution, I think, XR. If you go on the internet, XR, and they're in England, and he gave a great lecture on organizing, and he's right. The guy was right. Yeah, I don't know where he's coming from, because he was going 3 years over the tipping point, and that's it. The world is falling, right? Well, that's not true. It is and it isn't. So when I was in the UN, right, little Institute of Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technology, which I still want to bring back, and take on the road through the traveling video art circus, which is another thing I had, which I want to bring back, and a thing that I called, I used a nonprofit that we started in UNC called the Freely Inquiring Society, right? Freely not meaning for free, but open, inquiring to understand society, community. And in universities, they have fraternities and sororities, and they have societies. So my idea was to take this to different colleges, and see, colleges have this thing called, student activity, right? They take $200 or $300 from each kid, and that's what they use for the movies and parties and bands and concerts and lectures and all that kind of stuff, right? And they usually have way more money than they need, and so they got to spend it every semester. So if you put together a cultural organization that goes from college to college, and gives, stays there a week and gives lectures and parties and dances and concerts and gets everyone dancing aerobic dancing, that would be a fun, and I did it, very profitable, right? And because you could get 20 grand a pop, 8 people, you get a bus, and you put a whole bunch of interesting stuff in it. You write a nice curriculum, so when you get to that college, they're kind of prepared. They have gathered all the stuff you need. They have the space. You given them. They put it out into their community, and you just show up and do it. And they give you 20 grand for that week. And there's 5 of you. That's at least 2 grand a week. For as long as you want to do that. It's a workable. I did it. It works. But the amazing thing is after I did it 1 year, I couldn't get anybody else to do it because I'm busy with my job. I said, this is a job. How much do you make a week? Oh, $150. Guarantee you make 2 grand cash every week. It would freak them out so they couldn't make a decision. And that's where and that was 20 years ago. 30 years ago, it's people way more uptight now, way more inattentive, way more because they fighting over masks. Oh, come on! I mean, I have mine all the time. Look, this is my mask. When I have to get masked up, this is how I go. This is how Bob masked. Otherwise, I wear it around my neck so I don't get a chill. So, again, I'm out here in the woods. invitation is always open. Let's take it on the road. Between now and 4th of July, we could just be a burning cinder. And if you're out in the woods, you probably burn last. But it's interesting. What can I say? So it's 1 hour. Oh, look at that. 1 hour. I'll go on for a little bit longer. Any questions, Jamie? And so this guy, XR, and he really said it because it is the truth. I've been involved in social activism for at least 60 years. And and I observed it another 10, right? So it has to, when you're organizing, you have to have a cadre, a tight group of people, no more than 10, right? And when you come together, it's with a distinct, I'm going to do this, right? And what you want to do, okay, so a good example is the Shoreham Nuclear Power Plant, right? I kind of moved on to Long Island without even knowing that they were doing that, right? And here I was, a guy who worked in the nuclear industry, had worked, in the No Nukes program with Ralph Nader and a whole bunch of other people who put on big concerts. And that was in New York City. Hey there, Fish. And I basically was out in Long Island, and I had this real estate business and this contracting business and my master electrician's license business and my art business. And I was doing a radio show out there in CW Post College. And I was working at Brookhaven National Laboratories as a consultant, so I was a busy boy. But it wasn't until I was at Brookhaven when someone said, "Oh yeah, they're building a nuclear power plant just down the road." What? so that's when Dr. What was his name? That's his name. He was the guy who invented nuclear health physics in the Manhattan Project. He felt so guilty. He was young and stupid, and he was there when they did the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He went in with a group of Marines to take, see how bad it was, because that's what Hiroshima and Nagasaki were. They were lab experiments, right? The Japanese were already burnt to a cinder by B-29s, bombing from 30,000 feet. The Japanese couldn't even touch them. And they were just, LeMay was just incinerating the cities, just killing millions, right? Until they would give up, basically doing what Vlad's doing, but, way more insidiously. So, I mean, we did it in Afghanistan, we did it in Iraq, we did it in Syria, right? And that's why I'm saying, is Vlad reading the script, meaning he's part of the show, or is he being hoodwinked and still being part of the show? So that's the story. Anyway, so Mr. XR was saying you got to organize a small group, have Shoreham Nuclear Power Plant, right? I go there, I visit it. I go with this guy from Brookhaven. We're both from Brookhaven. We come to visit, and all those guys are like patting each other on the back. And I tell the information officer there at the plant, I said, listen, I'm working at Brookhaven. I'm one of you guys, nuclear all the way. And I'm a filmmaker, I'd love to come here and make a film and have you tell your story. Because that's a great idea. And I go, okay. So you go talk to your people. Here's my card. And, you can always talk to Gus here if you're looking for me up there in Brookhaven. And so he goes, okay. And so, I didn't make a big deal of it. I just said, hey, why don't we do this? And we said, okay. So, I did that as my exploratory, and it was a mess. I worked on a lot of nuclear facilities, and this was a mess. No one knew what they were doing, but they were just doing it. Just going, lemmings going off the cliff. And when I said to Gus, I said, have you been here before? He goes, no, that's terrible. It's like, I have to tell those people to clean their act up. I said, to stop. I mean, every level of what they're doing is wrong. You see how they were welding those pipes? It was like they were working on a banister in a restaurant or something. It's like, anyway. So I then heard there was, a group that was against the shore empowerment. Right? I tried to find them, and then I heard, they're going to have this conference, right, in Connecticut. This thing called the SHAD Alliance. Because I asked my anti-nuclear friends about, what's going on with the shore power plant. And they said, there's nothing really. Some old ladies and this thing called SHAD in Connecticut. Because they were just on the other side of the accident. All of Connecticut, a good part of New England, most of New York City would get dead. So I went to that thing. It was a joke. There was about 100 people there, and they were all from these little different groups, albino, African American, blind, quadrupeds against against nuclear power. It's like, what? So I'm looking around, and this one lady spoke, and Esther Pang, and she was a grandma from Shoreham. And she had been fighting them for 16 years, her alone. And they wanted to build 6 power plants. Her alone had kept it down to 1. I said, so I went over, and she had her girlfriends with her. She had these 4 other. So Esther was in her 60s, pushing 70. The other girls were somewhere between that and 45. Right? And I, at the time, was 42, maybe, just in my 40s. And 80, 1980, I was 40 something, 82. Anyway, so I said, at that thing, I said, so Esther, where do you live? She goes, I said, so girls, why don't we meet at Esther's house? What's a good day for everybody? Wednesday, good day for me. I can be there. Be there at night. I'll bring booze and some yummy things. You girls all make something. Let's have a little potluck dinner. And one of the old ladies said, I'll bring the pot. I said, so we got together. We all showed up. And I said, okay. So what do you want to do that SHAD stupid thing, or do you want to stop the Shoreham power plant? I said, we want to stop. I said, so we need to start our own organization, and it's going to be called the Stop Shoreham Power Plant Movement Rally, like something. But Stop Shoreham was really the logo, right? And Shoreham and Chase Manhattan Bank and Mr. Rothschild, everyone within 20 miles of this plant, they paid their property tax. They built everyone new high schools. So everybody around there said, no, we love the plant. And a lot of those guys were working there making $100,000 a year doing nothing. So, politically it was pretty tough. And everybody was Republican, Ronald Reagan, love it or leave it. So we had our work cut out for us. But we did. And so I said, we have to shock these people, right? First thing to shock the people, who is the most at risk? And they go, I said, the police are most at risk. This accident happens. They're going to be out there trying to get 500,000 people through a corridor that's 6 miles wide, and there's only 11 lanes of roads to get that many millions of people out of there within hours. Not going to happen. The Suffolk, Nassau County, and the other police departments. So we have to go to them. I'm going to go up to Brookhaven and get that boy who's invented nuclear health physics, who was aghast at that plant. He will, he is the world Nobel laureate, invented nuclear health physics. He knows it. He was there in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He's been around a lot of accidents. I'm going to bring him to all the police, and he'll have photographs of burns and scare the shit out of the cops. And then they'll be our allies. And they were our first allies, the police. And so when we started doing civil disobedience, the police wouldn't have arrested us. They would come too late. We do it real fast, make an annoyance of ourselves, and leave. And then the cops would say, okay, it's been 2 hours. We'll show up, see if they're there. And we'd always be gone. we did that for the first 8 months, and the news people came and shot it, photographed it. Never on the radio. Never on the. That's why I started a radio show. Right? That's why I was doing the Potato Wolf in New York City. That's what affected New York City. All those 1.2 million people totally irradiated through New York City. All their cars totally glowing. So, I mean, when Chernobyl blew up, and they would have these hot spots all over the planet from Chernobyl. See, the thing about radiation, it has a signature. I mean, that every reactor has like an address, right? And you can tell. And so if you blow up an atomic bomb, you know where it came from. You can tell whether it came from this plant in China or this plant in Russia or this plant in Tennessee, right? This plant in Washington State. So we went at it like that, and we just kept annoying people. And then when they would come, because they were annoyed, we'd educate them. It took us 3 years, but with these pinpoint annoyances, and basically we won. We shut the plant down. Now God intervened because every time we won every battle. Every battle. We went to the Supreme Court 3 times because it was a constitutional issue. And Ronald Reagan just signed another executive order and said, fuck you. And so Mr. XR is definitely right. So all these guys out there, all 0 of you, need to get little clues and figure out what's important to your life, right where you live, and organize around that. As long as you're coming from love co-creation, you can't lose. Yeah? And that's where I was ordained the minister of fun, because even though I was a strategist for all this, and I was in the way background, and I pushed Esther and the old ladies up front, and then the next group, Kathy Boylan, and this other, what was her name? She was just a young girl at SUNY, and she was thinking about being a lawyer. She was the girl who went up into the Supreme Court and won 3 times against, Case Manhattan, Rockefellers, and Mr. Rothschild's big banking lawyers. She ate them alive. And then Ronald Reagan signed executive order negating the Supreme Court. So anyway, that's the world we live in. And that's why the aliens are going to show up. Because we spent the last 70 years, what is it, since World War II, 45? Yeah, 70 years, give or take. It's all been a preparation for these guys to land. I mean, that's why the movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, I mean, that's what it's frigging about. Right? We're just going to be re-engineered. We've been re-engineered so many times. We've been around a zillion years. And anybody who's, these scholastics, this one guy I call up, and he's supposed to be smart, and he's a lettered guy, and, I've got more degrees than a thermometer. I don't hold them out. And because I know they're worthless, right? And so he's, I studied anthropology. Oh, that's nice. How many classes? 2. That's good. You ever go on a test? No, but I studied anthropology. And what's your favorite anthropologist? I studied anthropology. How about Margaret Mead? You like her? Oh, she's a woman. That is the scholastic mentality. I studied, geology for 2 semesters. And that's the scholastic. Anyway, so it's been 11 hours. So when we get 11:15, I'm out of here. Fish, I'll call you soon. It's all good. Again, Come on, send me some money. That way I can try to get the internet in more, in my neighborhood, so I can talk to you from the man cave and not have a constant. People have been complaining about the background elevator music. Not my fault, you know, because it's the only place I can do it. Right? And why I can only do it like once a week, because I don't have any money to put in the gas tank. So come on, PayPal, send me money. Dudewake42@gmail. Dudewake42@gmail. If you want to get a hold of me and talk to me personally, a lot of people do. Dudewake42@gmail. I'm there for you. Always there for you guys. Okay. I love you. You stay well.